Brutus struggles with his conscience, ultimately deciding that Caesar must die for Rome's good, and officially joins the conspiracy. In Scene 3, Act 3, the enraged mob, now out of control, kills the innocent poet Cinna simply for sharing a name with one of the conspirators, Cinna. I will kill Julius Caesar, he is my friend, but why am I killing him? Not of personal grudge or personal reasons. Cassius says that we will wait here, let them come. When they march here, they lose their energy, we will attack them. Hello students, I am Anil, Assistant Professor of English, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. In this session, we are going to look at one of the most famous plays of William Shakespeare, the tragedy of Julius Caesar, prescribed for the students of BCA 3rd semester. In this session, what are we going to do? We will have an introduction of the author, then we will learn about the key characters in the play, then we will get the act-wise summary of the play, then we will look at the important quotes in the play Julius Caesar. William Shakespeare, he is known well all over the world. He was born on 23rd April 1564. He died on the same day, but in the year 1616. He is a famous English playwright, poet, and an actor. He is known as the Bard of Avon. He wrote 39 plays. There were 37 when we read, then recently 2 more plays are added to his credit. And he wrote 154 sonnets, and he had written 2 long narrative poems. His works have been translated into every major living language in the world. He is the most performed playwright in history. If you look at the theatre, Shakespearean plays are the widely performed plays all over the world. So this man is known for touching all human emotions and giving importance to life. Now, an overview of this Julius Caesar. This Julius Caesar is a play written by William Shakespeare. This drama has a historical background to it. So this was written in the year 1599. This is a history and a tragedy. It is based on real events that happened in Rome. The central themes of this play are power, loyalty, fate versus free will, and finally betrayal. So these things are the themes of this play, the tragedy of Julius Caesar, which is in short called as Julius Caesar. The key characters of this play, Julius Caesar, is Julius Caesar himself. He is the Roman general. Brutus is the friend of Julius Caesar. He later turns out to be a conspirator. Cassius is the leader of the conspiracy. Something happens in the play against Julius Caesar, and Cassius is the first man. Mark Antony is the Caesar's loyal supporter and a friend. Calpurnia is Caesar's wife. Portia is Brutus's wife. Soothsayer is the one who warns Caesar about his future. Octavius is the Caesar's heir. The most important people in the play are these characters. The play begins, the first act, first scene. Tribunes Flavius and Marullus scold Roman citizens for celebrating Caesar's triumph, reminding them of their forgotten loyalty to Pompey. So, to introduce, before I begin this act, you have to understand Rome was a democratic state. What is democracy? Democracy is a state where people choose their representatives to a political setup, and that chosen people will make laws for the land and people start to follow. Indirectly, it is people ruling their own selves. So Rome was such kind of a state. That Senate had many people. Sometimes 1 or 2 of the senators became very powerful. They won the love of people, and people wanted those people to become the emperor or the king. This was how people showed their respects to their beloved people who ruled in the Senate. But what happened in the Senate if 1 or 2 is loved by the people? The other senators will become jealousy of their popularity. And same is the theme in Julius Caesar. And Julius Caesar meets with a very tragic end when people loved him very much. So as the play begins, in the very first act, first scene, tribunes, that means senators, Flavius and Marullus, they scold common people. It was the day of a festival in Lupercal. Julius Caesar has won. He was also the commander of the Roman army. He had won many victories for Rome, and people know that he was an able commander. Now he was returning on the day of Lupercal. He was there. People were celebrating. They were in their best clothes. But senators, Flavius and Marullus, they were not happy with them. So therefore, they made two common people in the Roman streets. One was a cobbler, one was a carpenter. So when the carpenter and cobbler were met, they say that they were celebrating Julius Caesar. And these two men become very angry. They did not want the entire city to be decorated in celebration of the Lupercal festival and also celebrating the victory of Julius Caesar. So that is how we get to know the background of this play. In the scene to first act, during a public celebration, a soothsayer warns Caesar to beware the Ides of March. Cassius begins manipulating Brutus to turn against Caesar. So this scene, first act, second scene, is the most important scene because we get to know almost the entire plot of the play. So here, we get to know that Julius Caesar is welcomed. People are now celebrating him. We get to know about Cassius, one of the major anti-protagonist or anti-hero of the play. Cassius is poisoning the mind of Brutus, telling that Brutus has become so famous, he was a common man just like you and I. But now he has reached such level that people are wanting him to become the king of Rome. And also Julius Caesar is becoming ambitious to be the king of Rome, emperor of Rome. Cassius tells Brutus that Caesar is not as strong as people know him to be. So how did he justify it? He justifies with an act happened when both of them were commanders in the army. So he says that Cassius was there in the camp and Julius Caesar challenged him to swim across river Tiber in Rome. Since Julius Caesar challenges Cassius without thinking, he jumps into the river. Caesar also jumps into the river. But when Caesar was swimming, Cassius was already at the other point. Now Caesar screamed that he could not swim and he needed help. Cassius rescued him. And when they were on a war in Spain, Julius Caesar caught fever and he was shivering like a girl. And this says how Cassius started envying Julius Caesar's popularity. So this is how he manipulates Brutus. Brutus was not in a good mood, but Cassius uses this opportunity and tells him what is happening with Julius Caesar. And in the second scene, we get to know that Antony was with Julius Caesar on stage with the public. Antony, when people loved Julius Caesar so much, Antony just gave Julius Caesar a replica of the crown to Julius Caesar, but Julius Caesar refuses it 3 times. People then scream. After that, while coming, we get to know the character of Cassius as well through the words of Julius Caesar. He says Cassius is a silent man, he does not smile much, but he has the ability to read the minds of people. He is always hungry looking, he does not like such kind of men. He also says such men are dangerous. And one more important thing happens in the second scene of the first act. Here, a soothsayer, a man who sees the future of people, he warns Julius Caesar to be careful of 15th of March. Ides of March is 15th of March. This Lupercal festival happened on the previous day, 14th of March. So on the 14th of March, that soothsayer cautions Julius Caesar, beware of Ides of March, that is 15th, the next day. In scene 3, a violent storm filled with bad omens sets the mood as Cassius and Casca discuss their fear of Caesar's rising power and finalize plans for conspiracy. In here, Cassius says, I will write letter to Brutus. I have already stirred up the mind of Brutus. Now I will write many letters as written by the citizens of Rome in different handwritings to convince him to do something to Julius Caesar. What is that something? That something is killing Julius Caesar. So they finally finalize the plan and they start to execute their plan. So there ends the first act. First act, scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. Scene 2 is the most important thing you should not forget. So here, themes to notice. One is manipulation. How strong is manipulation? Cassius begins influencing Brutus's thoughts through flattery and fear. So Brutus was a good friend of Julius Caesar, but he was not happy on the day of Lupercal. And Cassius seizes this opportunity and he manipulates his thoughts. Then omens and superstitions in the Shakespearean play. Nature reflects political unrest. As you have seen in many or most of the movies, when something bad is happening, even the directors of the movie, they choose this kind of superstition and omens. So they give a hint that something bad is going to happen or something good is going to happen. But in this play, it was bad. Public versus private self. Characters struggle with image and inner beliefs. So we all carry two images. One is our public figure and the personal figure. So here Cassius is unhappy with his personal state of mind. And he wanted to be just like Julius Caesar in the public front. So we all carry public versus private self. Cassius and Julius Caesar. Moving on to the next act, second act. Scene 1. Brutus struggles with his conscience, ultimately deciding that Caesar must die for Rome's good, and officially joins the conspiracy. In this scene, we get to know about Brutus's mind. So he got the letters written by Cassius as they were written by the people of Rome. He could not get sleep. He was up. He finds those letters. It was already the Ides of March, but at midnight. Then he decides even people are thinking the same, and what he was thinking was right. Then he finally decides, okay, I must do something to protect Rome. Brutus was a good friend of Julius Caesar, but he was in love with Rome more than he loved Julius Caesar. So he thinks that nation first, friendship next. And Cassius utilizes this state of mind of Brutus to manipulate him and bring him to their fold. Cassius has already built a team of conspirators, but Brutus was a noble man. People respected Brutus as they respected Julius Caesar. Therefore, Cassius wanted Brutus to their side, and he was successful in doing so through writing letter. They all meet Brutus early in the morning on the 15th March. Then, the second scene of the second act is also one of the most important scenes of the play. Calpurnia begs Caesar to stay home after troubling dreams, but Decius interprets the dream and persuades Caesar to go to the capital. Calpurnia's dream is one of the important dreams or scenes in the entire play. What did she dream of? She dreams as if a statue of Julius Caesar was oozing out its blood like fountain, and many happy Romans were washing their hands with the blood of Julius Caesar. She thinks that it was a bad omen, and she cautions her husband, Julius Caesar, you are not supposed to go out today. Stay home. I had a bad dream. So when this was told to Julius Caesar, he sends a servant to the priest and told him to give a sacrifice and see what the interpretation is. The servant comes back and he tells Julius Caesar, a sacrifice was made to the gods. But when the animal was cut open, that animal did not have heart in it. The day is really bad. You should not go out. But the previous scene, the conspirators also decided if Julius Caesar does not come tomorrow to the Senate, someone has to persuade him. And for that, Decius Brutus says, okay, I will bring him to the Senate. And we will not murder him, we will sacrifice him for the good of Rome. That is how they have interpreted their act of crime. Now that is what he says. Decius interprets this dream in a different way. He tells Calpurnia, your dream is good. It is not a bad omen. How it is good? It is good like this. This man, Julius Caesar, is a great man. And his blood will give life to Rome. And many Romans, happy Romans, washing their hands in Julius Caesar's blood means that people will remember him forever. They will remain gratitude for Julius Caesar's contribution to Rome. And listening to this, Julius Caesar himself is now happy. He thinks, yes, that is the right interpretation. I'll go to the Senate. And then he decides to go to the Senate. He did not give much attention to Calpurnia's interpretation of the dream. You also have to remember what the sacrifice was. When the animal was cut open, there was no heart. We will link this later in the act. Then the third scene, Artemidorus prepares a letter warning Caesar about the conspirators hoping to save him. This is a very short scene. Here a person named Artemidorus, he writes a letter to Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, don't trust anybody who is around you, even Brutus. Though Brutus is your best friend, he is now with the conspirators. Don't trust anybody around you in the Senate. Be careful. He writes a letter, he reads on the stage so that the audience would know. He says, I will give this letter when Julius Caesar passes on the road. Scene 4, Portia, anxious about Brutus' behavior, worries for him and sends a messenger. The soothsayer heads to the capital to warn Caesar again. In scene 4, Portia is the wife of Brutus. She had noticed in this scene that Brutus had not slept well. Now she is worried. Something is wrong. Brutus is going to do something wrong. And she wanted to know what. So she sends her servant to the capital, the Senate, and asked him to observe what is happening in the Senate and come back and report. And soothsayer comes to the capital. He wanted to warn Julius Caesar again. So here ends the second act. So the story slowly continues and this is what happens. So what are the themes to notice in Act 2? So internal conflict. Brutus battles morality versus patriotism. Brutus, he fights his own love for his friend and also patriotism, his love for his country. And finally, he decides that he places country above his friendship. Then persuasion and rhetoric. Persuasion and rhetoric. What is persuasion? The act of making people do what you want them to do. So here, rhetoric means the ability to speak and convince people. So Decius twists Calpurnia's dream to manipulate Caesar. Manipulation and persuasion are the same kind of act, but the intention is different. Persuasion is for the positive effect, manipulation is for the negative effect. So here, Calpurnia wanted to stop Julius Caesar from going to Senate. But Decius, he twists the meaning of the entire dream. He convinces Julius Caesar to go to Senate. Relationships. Emotional bonds strain under political pressure. Brutus, Portia, Caesar, Calpurnia. See, the relationship of a husband and a wife. They strain under political pressure. Julius Caesar, he agrees to go to Senate, thinking that if he did not go to the Senate, people will consider him to be weak. He did not want to show that kind of Julius Caesar. And Brutus and Portia. Portia wanted to know what Brutus was intending to do, but Brutus did not say a word to Portia. But Portia understood that something is wrong. Even their relationship was strained under political pressure. Moving on to the next act, Act 3. Scene 1. Caesar arrives at the capital and is stabbed by the conspirators, including Brutus. Antony appears and cleverly gains permission to speak at the funeral. Act 3, Scene 1 is one of the most important scenes in the play. So what happens here? Caesar arrives at the capital. Then all the senators sit around him. Then Metellus Cimber, he comes in front of Julius Caesar and he begs pardon for his brother. His brother had been banished from the city of Rome. His citizenship has been taken away from this person for some crime committed. And Metellus Cimber is the first person to initiate the act of conspiracy. So here he asks him to take back that permission. But now we get to know Julius Caesar has become somewhat ambitious, somewhat self-centered. He did not give attention to the state of affairs, what was happening. He rejects the letter by Artemidorus. He says that this letter, Artemidorus tells Julius Caesar that Julius Caesar, read this letter first. It is regarding you. And this man rejects it, saying, state matters first, not my personal things. Therefore, he falls there the second time. On the way, he meets Soothsayer also. He tells Soothsayer, Soothsayer, see, you had told the previous day to be careful of Ides of March. Nothing has happened. For that, Soothsayer replies, Julius Caesar, the Ides has come. 15th March has arrived, but not over yet. Be careful. But he neglects it. He gets into the capital. Metellus Cimber comes up with a petition Then Julius Caesar rejects it. He tells him that I am like Mount Olympus. I am like the northern star. I am not like you people. Once I decide, that's all. And this enrages all the senators, thinking that this man is becoming more and more ambitious. He wants to be the emperor of Rome. And that can never happen in Rome. So when this happens, everybody come near Julius Caesar. One by one, everybody stab their daggers into the body of Julius Caesar. And finally, Brutus too, who has joined the conspirators, he comes. He stabs Julius Caesar. And here we have this famous quote, "Yet to Brute, you too Brutus," is the New English dialogue. So what does that mean? Break of trust. When somebody says, "Yet to Brute," that means that was a heartless act. So when the sacrifice was given in the previous act, the animal did not have a heart. That means these conspirators are just like that animal, or that animal might be this man, Julius Caesar. He was killed heartlessly by his own Senate members. Scene 2. Brutus gives a logical, calm explanation for the assassination, but Antony's passionate speech sways the crowd by appealing to emotions and turning them against the conspirators. So here, after Julius Caesar was killed, Antony was taken out by one of the conspirators to stop him from stopping the killing of Julius Caesar. When he got to know that Julius Caesar was killed, he runs home. He wanted to hide first and then act. When everything was done in the first scene of the third act, he sends his servant first to Brutus. When Brutus assures him that he won't be harmed, he comes back. And he asks one thing. He wanted to know the reason why Julius Caesar was killed. And Brutus explains to the public that Julius Caesar was becoming more and more ambitious. He wanted to be the emperor, and therefore he had to be killed. We did not want to become slaves for a king. Therefore, they killed Julius Caesar. And people start appreciating Brutus for this act in the beginning. And with his permission, Antony starts to speak. He says, "Okay, allow me to take the dead body of Julius Caesar to the marketplace, and then I'll speak. I'll talk about this dead man. I'm not going to dishonor you people who killed Julius Caesar." With this promise, he takes the body to the marketplace and he starts speaking to the people of Rome. He tells, people of Rome was loved by Julius Caesar. How? Julius Caesar did not have a child. So he had written all his wealth to the people of Rome. So he had a will which said all his property, all his private gardens, buildings should be thrown open to the people of Rome. And he had promised each Roman 15 silver coins. So when he reads out this will, people understand that Julius Caesar was not an ambitious man. So finally, Antony was successful in turning the opinion of people against Brutus. In his speech, he uses nobleman for the conspirators. And people now slowly understood that his killing was a heinous act. So therefore, the mob turns against Brutus. By then, Brutus had already fled the city. In scene 3, act 3, the enraged mob, now out of control, kills the innocent poet Cinna simply for sharing a name with one of the conspirators, Cinna. Now mob people got enraged. They wanted to take revenge for their beloved commander, Julius Caesar's murder. So what they did, they were looking for the conspirators, and there was an innocent man, a poet named Cinna, and one of the conspirators' name was also Cinna. So the mob kills an innocent man just for sharing the name poet Cinna. What are the themes to notice in this act? Betrayal and loyalty. Brutus' betrayal of Caesar versus Antony's loyalty. So Brutus was a trusted man by Julius Caesar, but he was the last man to stab Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar says, "Yet to Brute, then fall Caesar." That means you too, Brutus, you too did not understand me. Then what is the use of me being alive? Let me die. That is what he says. When he says, "Yet to Brute, then fall Caesar." Then Antony's loyalty. Antony believes that Julius Caesar was not ambitious because he refused the crown, a replica of the crown, when he was given it 3 times. Power of rhetoric. What is rhetoric? Ability to speak and convince people. Words ignites civil unrest. Antony was successful in changing the opinion of people. When Brutus gave his explanation, people believed. They called Brutus was a noble man and Julius Caesar was a tyrant. When Antony speaks, people understand that they were wrong. So it is the ability of the Antony who creates an unrest through words. Then mob mentality. The people's loyalty shifts quickly, driven by emotion. So driven by emotion, what did the people do? They lynched a man who was a poet, who did not have any role in killing Julius Caesar, but the name, the mob mentality and emotion. Act 4, Scene 1, Antony, Octavius and Lepidus form a ruthless alliance and plot the elimination of their enemies while Antony questions Lepidus' worth. So here we get to know the conspirators have already fled the city. They were not in the city. They understood that people have rose against them. The act of killing Julius Caesar was a mistake, but they have fled the city. Here we come to know that Antony, Octavius and Lepidus, they form a team, alliance. Then they plot to eliminate the conspirators. And here we get to know that Antony is not happy with Lepidus and Lepidus was not worthy to be the successor or the next one to rule Rome. In Scene 2, Brutus and Cassius meet after a long time and raising tensions hint at cracks in their friendship and leadership. In this scene, we get to know that Brutus has clearly understood the personal motives of Cassius in killing Julius Caesar. He blames Cassius, but Cassius refuses. Then they somewhat patch up their differences. Clearly, audience gets to know that there is something wrong with their friendship now. Brutus has understood his mistake, that he was wrong in killing Julius Caesar. But Cassius was successful, but still acts as if he is the friend of Brutus. In Scene 3, Act 4, a fierce argument erupts between Brutus and Cassius, but they reconcile emotionally after sharing their personal sorrows, including Portia's death. Brutus is later haunted by Caesar's ghost. So here what happens? In the third scene of the fourth act, so they start to fight with each other verbally. Then they share their common sorrows. Finally, Brutus gets to know that Portia died of suicide because she could not stay alone and she knew the fate of Brutus. Therefore, she swallowed the burning coal and committed suicide. And this makes Brutus morally degraded. He loses his morality to fight against his enemies. So this is what happens in Act 4. So in Act 5, Scene 1, before the Battle of Philippi, the leaders exchange sharp words and Brutus and Cassius emotionally prepare for possible death. So now the two parties meet on the battlefield and they exchange their criticism, their acts, everything happens. And finally, Brutus understands that, okay, fine, the enemy team has grown stronger. Possibly, we may die in the battlefield. And before here, in the previous scene, fourth act, the ghost of Julius Caesar appears and it warns Brutus, I will meet you in Philippi. Now they are in Philippi. They decide that, okay, something is going to go against us. Brutus is convinced. In the second scene, Brutus orders a surprise attack, hoping to gain an upper hand against Octavius' weakened forces. As the battle proceeds, Octavius' army starts losing in the beginning, and Brutus tries to take it under his control. In Scene 3, Cassius, misinformed about the battle's outcome, that Titinius' fate, tragically kills himself. Titinius follows suit in grief. So what happens as it starts going on? The battle has already started. They are fighting each other. Morally, Brutus is down. And there was a misinformation. Brutus was gaining control over the army of Octavius. But what happens? A misinformation reaches Cassius. And he believes that they were losing the ground. They were getting defeated in front of their enemies. So, without knowing anything clearly, Cassius is disheartened. Therefore, he commits suicide. When he commits suicide, Titinius also follows Cassius in grief. Lucius sacrifices himself by pretending to be Brutus, demonstrating loyalty and bravery in battle. So Lucius is the one who wanted to save Brutus, and he says, let me die for Brutus. People think that he was Brutus, and he dies for Brutus, expressing his loyalty to the Brutus. What happens in scene 5 of the 5th act? Defeated and weary, Brutus takes his own life, and even his enemies acknowledge his nobility and honorable intentions. So finally what happens? Brutus could no more take the defeat to his heart. And he has already understood that the act which he has already committed was completely wrong. He did not understand his friend well. He fell into the trap of Cassius's personal revenge on Julius Caesar. So therefore, he commits suicide in the end. But when he dies, the opponents, the enemies, Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus, what they do? They acknowledge his loyalty to Rome. They acknowledge that his friendship was true, but he was poisoned through bad thoughts by Cassius. And finally, he was given the right funeral. So there ends the play, the tragedy of Julius Caesar. Now let us look at the important quotes of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, though it was performed for the first time in the year 1599, the entire play is still relevant today in the political setup of any country. So here are the famous quotes. These famous quotes and important dialogues from each act of Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare are great dialogues for adding dramatic impact to the play and emphasize key themes like betrayal, fate, power, and rhetoric. What are these quotes? Which are these quotes? In Act 1, we find one. Cassius tells to Brutus, "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings." He says, when was this said? This was said in the second scene, first act. Cassius was trying to poison the mind of Brutus. Brutus says that we are not fortunate enough to be of such kind of Julius Caesar where people are appreciating his achievements. Then Cassius says, the fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. That means we don't have such fate. Problem is with our stars. Cassius blames people, not fate, for their submissive roles in life. So he tells, we people are responsible for our own selves. We are falling under the feet of Julius Caesar. Then Soothsayer says to Caesar in Act 1, Scene 2, beware of Ides of March. I explained it in the very beginning. The iconic warning that foreshadows Caesar's death. Again, in the first act, second scene, Cassius on Caesar, he says, why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus. Cassius resents Caesar's growing power and influence. So he is jealous. He tells to the audience and he tells to Brutus, he talks about Julius Caesar. Those are the important dialogues in the first act. In Act 2, we see Brutus, it must be by his death, and for my part, I know no personal cause to spurn at him. Brutus is acknowledging to himself, he's convincing himself that, okay, I'm going to kill my friend Julius Caesar. Why? Not for personal reasons, but for the good of Rome. Calpurnia, Act 2, Scene 2. When beggars die, there are no comets seen. The heavens themselves blaze forth the death of princes. So here she signifies that even the nature is responding in a negative way, that something wrong is going to happen. Therefore, she says, when beggars die, common people die, there is nothing. No comets are seen. But when princes fall, that means most important people die, the heaven burns. That is the significance. Now, Julius Caesar in Act 2, Scene 2. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The villain never tastes of death but once. This is the most famous dialogues. You must have already heard about this. Cowards die many times. That means even the omens are true. I don't fear them. That is what Julius Caesar says. If you are a coward, you keep thinking of death and keep dying each minute, each second, each time. But valiants, they don't think about death. If death comes, that is the end. That's all. It comes only once in life. Caesar dismisses fear and fate with arrogance. In Act 3, Caesar speaks. Yet to brood, then fall Caesar. In the third act, he is killed and he says, yet to brood, then fall Caesar. I explained it while explaining the scene. Caesar's last words betrayed by the one he trusted the most. Brutus, not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. This signifies Brutus's love towards Rome. The preservance of democracy in Rome was most important thing for him than choosing his friend as the king. He was poisoned by the thoughts of Cassius. Cassius had a personal gain in killing Julius Caesar. Brutus justifies his role in the assassination. Act 3, Scene 2, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. So these are uttered by Brutus to the common people of Rome. Antony is powerful. Okay. Antony says in Act 3, Scene 2, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. These are the powerful words which are being used even till today. So here, Antony's powerful funeral oration that turns the crowd. He grabs the attentions of the people. He grabs the attention of the people of Rome, and then he converts their emotion against Brutus. Antony in Act 3, Scene 2, he says, you all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withhold you then to mourn for him now? He's questioning the loyalty of the people. You loved him, but you have started hating him. Why? Julius Caesar. The reasons given by Brutus are not true. Antony uses rhetorical question to stir the guilt and emotion in people. In Act 4, Brutus to Cassius, he says, there's a tide in the affairs of men which take at the flood leads on to fortune. Brutus urges Cassius to seize the moment and go to Philippi. So this is where they talk about war and strategy. Cassius says that we will wait here, let them come. When they march here, they lose their energy, we will attack them. But Brutus says, no, seize the opportunity now. We are in good strength. Let's go and attack them and seize the power. Brutus urges Cassius to seize the moment and go to Philippi. O Julius Caesar, thou art mighty yet, thy spirit walks aboard. Brutus acknowledges Caesar's lingering influence even in death. So when he was losing the battle, he thinks when the ghost appears, Brutus becomes very weak. He says Julius Caesar is still powerful even after death. That is the meaning. In the 5th act, Cassius says, this tongue had not offended so today if Cassius might have ruled. Cassius expresses regret for not acting more decisively earlier. So here Cassius says this dialogue where he says that this tongue had not offended so today. That means he should have acted earlier when the things were at his favor. Caesar, now be still. I killed not thee with half so good a will. Brutus dies willingly, believing his cause had failed. So finally, in this 5th act, 5th scene, Brutus understands his mistake. And he says, Caesar, now be still. I liked not you with half so good a will. That means I loved you, but I killed you for the sake of Rome. And he understands his mistake, that he was wrong in doing so. Antony on Brutus, this was the noblest Roman of them all. That means among the conspirators, who was the most noble person? It was Brutus. Antony honors Brutus, recognizes his honorable motives, that whatever Brutus did, he did it for the good of Rome, but his friendship was strained under the poison of Cassius. This is the summary of the entire play, the tragedy of Julius Caesar. We have seen scene-wise summaries of each act, and this sums up to the entire story of the tragedy of Julius Caesar. And we have also seen some of the important quotes from the play Julius Caesar. We shall meet in the next class. Thank you.